Hello, dear students. I'm Dr. Neha Taneja. Welcome to Insta question number 4 of the day. Now, as you all know, we are doing Insta questions on a very important topic of preventive and social medicine, which is epidemiology. Whatever question I've put out so far are must-know questions that you must be able to answer, and there is no scope of getting those questions wrong. So, our questions for the day is: what is the measure of strength of association in a case control study? Is it odds ratio? Is it relative risk? Is it risk ratio? Or is it none of the above? Okay, now we all know that all these study designs, like I've told you in the previous Insta question number 3 also, all these study designs are conducted to establish association and causality, and we understood the meaning of association. In a case control study design, the correct answer to this is odds ratio. Why? Relative risk and risk ratios are measures of strength of association in a cohort study design. Okay, I'm sure everybody remembers this. Now, to understand this case control का measure of strength of association, let us draw a picture. So, what is this? Yes, here we have a population. In case control study design, what happens? This population, we divide it into two groups, cases and controls. Then what happens in a case control study? We go back in time. What does this mean? What do you mean by going back in time? Means you use historical data from the past, okay, to assess how many in the cases were exposed to a risk factor and how many were not exposed to a risk factor. Similarly, in the controls, we go back in time to see how many were exposed to a particular risk factor and how many were not exposed to a particular risk factor. Is it okay? So in a case control study, what happens? This we've already read also. This is a backward looking study. Where what are you doing? Backward looking study where you are trying to find out the exposure status among the cases and exposure status among the controls. Okay, so if I draw a slide, similarly, suppose we want to study the association of smoking and lung cancer with the help of a case control study design. So यहाँ पे आपका क्या हो जाएगा? Here you are going to have lung cancer. Here not yes and no, but cases and control. Okay, and यहाँ पे आपका same, it will be like smoking, yes or no. However, in case control study design, unlike a cohort, you are not following them up. So you cannot calculate the incidence. You are simply trying to provide an estimate of relative risk. Okay, you're just going to provide an estimate. That estimate is actually odds ratio. Okay, if this is A, this is B, this is C, this is D, then you have to find out here the exposure status among cases and controls. And this odds ratio is nothing but a cross product ratio. All right, and the formula of this is, please remember, this is asked AD upon BC. They will ask you this formula and they will also ask you the calculation for it. समझ में आ गया? So this is about odds ratio or cross product ratio that you must know. The formula is AD upon BC. Okay, so since now we have done both relative risk and odds ratio, we can make a comparison. Relative risk is a measure of strength of association in a cohort study. Odds ratio is a measure of strength of association in a case control study. Relative risk is a stronger measure of strength of association. Odds ratio is a weaker measure of strength of association. All right. Also, what is the synonym for relative risk? It is risk ratio, and odds ratio is a cross product ratio. Now, why is a relative risk a stronger method of measure strength of association? Because it tells us about the incidence of a disease. So please remember, try to remember these two differences also. It is very important. Okay, so if you come back to this, the measure of strength of association for a case control study is odds ratio. So this was Insta question number 4 from epidemiology. I hope you have understood this.